18 months ago. The timber mill closed. That's well known that the timber mill closed after 100 years of operation. We look to states like Victoria and Tasmania where timber mills closed and they got assistance from their state governments. We feel we're trying to make a brave transition to a tourist town, and this type of closure doesn't assist us to make that transition from being a timber town to a tourist town and a service town. And so this stands to have a large financial impact on this small community that we live in. And I think the government needs to decide whether they want communities like Pemberton and small communities. And we're just asking for a fair go, really. And I think now it's time to offer something back to the community rather than continue to take away from us. A fair bit of history with the camp school. My understanding is that originally it was owned and supported by the community, and in the early 70s it was handed or entrusted to the Education Department to continue that camp school. I think some of that history's been forgotten, but there was a time when the community actually owned that area, and part of the land that's used for the camp school even now is still owned by the community, and the government just thinks they're going to take it. I mean, they haven't consulted the community, and the impact that that's another thing that the community feels aggrieved that we weren't consulted about the impact that would have in our community, and just the history and the structure of the camp school in particular in our community here at Pemberton. We understand that we live in a small country town and that we don't always going to receive the services that some of the large communities like Bunbury and Collie and Albany and Perth receive. We make up for a lot of that by volunteers. You know, our ambulance service is done by volunteers. A lot of people aren't aware of those sorts of things. This is where a lot of the income for the state's generated. I've already mentioned about the timber mill and the timber industry. There's a lot of money generated there, and we feel that not much of that money stayed in the community. It's been sent out of the community, but also the agriculture and the tourism. So we generate real wealth, and we battle to keep that in our community. And so we just need those basic supports. And I think it's very poor timing, particularly this camp school closure, to take more employment and more wages out of a community that's really trying to put on a brave face and a strong struggle to survive in these country towns where we know we don't necessarily get the same level of services. As we make this transition to a tourist town, we're obviously trying to attract investors and people to the community, and that's one of the fears that that we won't be able to attract the required people to make that transition to a tourist town, and investors and accommodation and that type of thing, in tour companies and these sort of things sends the wrong signal when they want to close down. And relatively, it's a small cost to the government in the overall education budget, and we think it's something that they can continue to support our town and promote our town through the children that come and stay here. But some of these smaller country towns like Pemberton, I think are getting neglected, and I think they underestimate the economic worth to the state that some of these communities are worth. We notice things like tourism across the state are down, and I think towns like this have got the opportunity to turn that sort of thing around, that people want to come to these sorts of towns, but we do need some assistance. I say again, we do need that sort of assistance to make a transition from what was traditionally a strong timber town to a more focused tourism and agricultural area. Regional students matter.